who was it that really influenced the
You
style?
can adjust the volume of your
Yeah,
earphones here so that to make it quieter and louder.
there's when I started making the film, it was weird
Good
because
evening.
I had
This
ideas
is
of what it was gonna
Epicurian,
look like and what it was gonna be.
my
And
radio
so
show.
I
I'm
guess
the
I knew
producer
about
of this
like
show.
Peter
Things you will
Bogdanovich movies
hear
like
of
The
the
Last Picture
next
Show and
hour
Paper Moon. And
representative
it's funny
views
because those
of the
movies
Epicurian.
are like
All
those movies are
opinions,
very
questions, in no way
clean.
represent River West
The
Radio
black and white and
because
the
I'm the sole
old,
producer.
like the country look to it
Tonight,
is like really clean.
because
and
in lieu
smooth, all
of
the shots are
something
beautiful,
catastrophic
and
happening in the United
all the
States, so
dialogue is
diabolically,
just, I mean, it's
it
just
probably
like
will make you
heartbreaking
cringe and you might have
mystical
many
in some
bad days
places
when
and
you
really
think about
funny
it.
in others. And so I
Especially
was like,
mothers
I'm
out there
making a
when your
movie that's
children
like all
leave
these
home
really
and knowing
there's all these
that there's
really
heinous
nice
people in this world that
like
have slipped through the cracks.
sentiments. But
I
when
know
I got the
some
film
of you
back then,
probably
because
have
I
your
was shooting a lot of
ambivalence
different, I
and
was
pray to
shooting,
God there's something
like, at a
that never
different
happened to your children.
pace because I was running
So the
out of money.
topic tonight
So
is Sunnybrook
when I got the film
Elementary,
back and I
Newton,
started seeing what
Connecticut.
it looked like, it didn't
And I
look
have
like
a
a huge, awesome
esteemed
Hollywood
guest
production,
here that's
obviously,
very
because I
knowledgeable.
shot it on Super 8.
He's worldly
So
and traveled many places, did many
I had to
things.
rethink what
The
the film
contribution
was
he brings,
and
I think
what
you would
story I was
find
trying
most
to tell.
rewarding
And so that was
and
when a lot of like
informative.
a lot of the fun really
His
started
radio show is
happening, and a lot
known
of the more interesting
as Charles the Great.
educational parts for me of
This is
making the film
Epicurian.
were like when I had
Will
a lot
now
of footage.
let him
This is your
introduce
first film,
himself to you
Yeah, it's
formally.
my first film. Yep.
Mr. Charles
So
the
when I
Great,
had a lot of footage,
would you
I
please
realized like
introduce
how much
yourself
of the
to
directing was
society at
really
large?
the editing and like all these jobs that big films have different people do. I was just learning to do all the positions at once, basically.
Yes,
to
good
keep it
evening,
going.
ladies and
And so
gentlemen.
editing was like really
How do you do?
rewarding experience because
Yes.
that started to shape what the
My
film
name
actually
is
was. It went
Charles
a lot- like, it was a
Carmichael.
completely
They
different
call
story
me
from when I wrote it
CC.
and directed it
And if
edited
you
it. And I think a
seem
lot of
to be
filmmakers will
following,
tell you that,
you would know
you know,
that I
it's
am on
anything,
light between
earth-shattering,
7,
but,
6, and
so
8 o'clock.
I watched, I mean, the
And
film
if you
took me,
haven't
like,
heard
3.5
of
years to
life,
make, so
then
I
get a
saw
life
lot
and
of
check it
films
out.
and was influenced a lot by a lot of things
Between
while I was making the film pretty
6
actively.
So
and
this
8
was
o'clock
pretty spur of the moment
on
changes, I
Fridays.
Yeah, I mean, not really, like, not
Yes,
spur of the
Mr.
moment
Nemo.
changes. Like,
Well,
the
like I
story
said, this
stayed pretty much
tonight
the
I want to
same,
kind
but
of
how I was
dedicate
getting
this show to the
from point
situation
to
in
point
Connecticut.
would change.
I think
Like,
everybody that's
whether
listening is
that was a
familiar with
scene,
Boyd's concept
like,
management since
large scenes
the
that
literature
reveal
in
a
the
lot
book
about
was
story
created here in
turned into
Wisconsin.
just one shot.
And I like to
It turned
believe
into
that
one, you know, into
if
one
you're in
line,
the
and,
science of
the
any
story was
kind, you
always
do
the
not believe
same,
in
but how I told it
micromanagement.
changed
But you also
because
believe that
I
if you create a
realized that
program as the
A,
manager, you're
something
ultimately
was,
responsible for
more
the
interesting,
actions of your subordinates,
B,
positive and
that
negative. It's
it
like
would
Chatham
be
Torah. It's a
easier to
positive
do,
and negative.
you know, and
That being said, I was
easier
watching
and cheaper
television
to
and I
do
happened to see the
was a lot of the
PhD
time
as she was
because
being interviewed.
you know you have to start being creative with how
And
you're
my
gonna tell the
question
story.
would have been to her,
So
how
Or
is it
just
possible
realistic.
yeah, well, realistic, yeah, I
for the
suppose.
state of Connecticut is
But,
paying you this type of money and a
yeah,
stipend,
I
probably
saw
per
a lot of
diem,
movies, like while I was making the
to
film. I
have
really
let
liked,
someone slip
I saw the movie Gummo for the first time,
through
Harmony Korine, and
the psychological
that
barriers
had a
that is
pretty big
imposed
effect
to
on how I
ascertain
edited the film.
all anomalies
Um,
to make sure that everyone in the school
You
and
guys,
society
what
at
was the thing
large
that comes to
are
mind when you
safe.
talk about her? Isn't she the one who turned down, like,
She was very
big blocks of
placid
500
and
kids?
nonchalant.
No, it's a
None of
guy.
the above
Harmony
she
Korine's a
responded
guy.
to.
So
She
My bad.
indicated
Might
that it
be,
was a
though.
young
It might
man,
be.
if you're listening
Yeah.
carefully, his
So, yeah,
upbringing.
I
And they had nothing
I
to
watched this
do
movie,
with his behavior whatsoever
and
at all. And
I don't know,
I
there's just a lot
disagree
of
with
things.
that.
I watched
Because if one child
a
fell
lot
in a
of like
community
old noir
because
movies
lack of
and
vigilance
gangster movies and stuff, and
by society
I
at
don't know.
large, then the whole community has failed.
There's a lot of things going
And
on.
I think
But,
all mothers
music
and
too.
fathers will
I mean,
agree. Your
I
children
listened
is
to a
in
lot
the
of music,
schools
so that
from 6
took
to 8
effect on,
hours
like,
and
how
some
I
even
would
10
shape the
hours a
story. I
day.
used different songs from different
How is
artists
it
around town.
possible
Well,
for the
speaking
alleged
of
professionals
speaking of multiple roles, you
to be
also
around a
wrote.
child
So you mentioned
and
you wrote, you
not being
edited, you also wrote,
studious
directed, and you also
enough
starred.
to realize there's some anomalies? If they are there just to collect a check, you see what happens when you do that. And I think they're much more diabolic than he is because they know what he's capable of doing, but then want to put their reputation on the line if they was wrong, if he had the anomalies that would allow him to engage in such activities that was so heinous, it would make Satan cry. And for that reason, I think they all should be sanctioned. Sanctioned monetarily for the actions that they take and lack of action that should have been taken to catch this young man's anomalies and bring them forth so whatever medication he need or whatever therapy that he needed, then he could have got it and those babies would be alive today. My esteemed guest, I would like to him to respond because, like I said, he's a person been in many places, did a lot of things. He's very astute at large by society's behavior because he also is a student of cultural anthropology. Mr. Great Charles.
Yes, sir. Well, unfortunately, our society has a tendency, have gotten into a tendency of not wanting to get involved, but they're more than happy to jump up in the end resort and holler and cry and moan and groan over a situation that if they had a step forward wouldn't have existed. And of course, somewhere along the line, I'm pretty sure someone gonna come out and say, yeah, they knew it. They knew it. That boy had pixies. Back in the day, it used to be called Pixie, and he was touched by the pixies, But at least they stopped and looked and had a conclusion and tried to change things. Nowadays, you could care less. Somebody's having problems. Somebody is right on the edge, but yet you don't want to take the consideration of trying to help them, assist them, let someone know, be informative. No, we can't do that. Gee. That would be like trying to be truthfully human and get involved. Know your neighbors. Know the people around you. That way you know what is coming your way, or have a sense of knowing what is coming your way. We have gotten into our computer age and eliminating humanity aid. You rather sit down and talk to a computer than talk to a person. Of course, he said, oh, I am talking to a person on the computer. We're just texting. And I mentioned this once before. I was sitting in a place and watching two young ladies texting next to each other. They just going to town. And then all of a sudden, one of the ladies looked at the other lady and hit her and said, what did you say? And she explained what she said and went back to texting each other, sitting next to each other. Instead of having a conversation, they're sitting there with their phones, supposedly having a conversation. How ironic is that? You are sitting right next to someone and you cannot say hi. You just have to use a machine to say hi. So come on, it's that's part of life. The show on the radio, and as you see, as being on the radio, you can see people walking by the door. We like the old time 50 radios where we sit in the window and watch the people go by and invite them in and ask their opinion on what is going on within this section of everything. So, gentlemen, instead of standing out in the rain, come on in and join us. All right. So, but that's what's wrong with society. We have gotten further and further out of touch. But but my saying always has been, the only way to take over America is to take it from within. And if you take and eliminate their youth, you eliminate America. Because it's just the country. It's the youth that makes the country what it is. before it was even called America. And I'm pretty sure that the Indians had a whole totally different name for it. And then finally they got rid of them. And they named it America. You know? And we always say, God bless America. You know? When we should be saying, God bless the people. Because that's what makes America, America. And if you keep going around and not taking care of and talking to your neighbors, and we end up with such tragedies as we had today, then what are we doing? You know, we're giving up our country. And today, or Friday, we sacrificed our babies in the name of gun control and being able to buy your firearms, and they're not checking to make sure that you're stable enough to own a firearm. So, Mr. Amor, that's busy. I know it's a general statement coming from me, but I could only be general under the situation, you know, because it's after tense, and I could suggest many ways that it could have been prevented, but there is nothing we can do to stop it because it's past tense. So hopefully we'll learn from it. Ms. Amo?
I think what you're saying with society at large, that how can we honestly look ourselves in the mirror and have a malevolent usurpation about our own persona that allow us to look upon society and ourselves as diabolic and loquacious, along with pestiferousness, and we call ourselves benevolent human beings, and stand by idly and watch thy neighbor bleed. We all have sensitivities and fragilities, but I just wonder now, how many people out there would saw or have seen or would look upon a situation where a lady is being accosted, or child being accosted, an elderly person being accosted, no matter the national organ, because we all are human beings with one common denominator. I like to believe that we could never be so heinous to do that, because guess what? Our hemoglobin have different types, but I don't care where you're in the world, if it's the same type, you can use it, so that we all have a common denominator, that we give each other life and abundance when we act like human beings and care for each other as a God-fearing human being with the wisdom to know the difference with a psychological heart, predicated on benevolence, welfare, love, justice, and peace. And please don't forget love, kindness, because that is most paramount. It would be very interesting to look at someone and says, how could you be so insidious? Or either look at yourself and stood by idly and watch your neighbor bleed, and you did nothing. And maybe what happened is a wake-up call for us all. Never, never, never stand by idly and watch your neighbor bleed. If there's some anomalies that you exist of, why don't we make it our business to approach it with wisdom and not malice, that the person can be helped, because the next time around, your nonchalant behavior, it could be your child, your mother, your brother, your sister. In order to prevent that, we need to be more cognizant and vigilant about our society at large. You don't have to impugn someone. You can simply ask them, in a nice, kind, and loving way. Say, sir or ma'am, is it possible that we could sit and have a dialogue, and after the dialogue is finished, that you might form a different opinion about your own self and how you look at yourself? Because if you tell them there's something wrong with them, you might lose them. But if you engage them in dialogue and ask them to look at things from a different perspective, with not being condescending or condemning, and associating your whole conversation based on stigmatization, then you might find that person willing and amenable to the things you want to say. And it's strange that in life, when we want to be acquainted with someone of the opposite sex, we put our best foot forward and allow them to engage in a conversation that's very constructive. And from that, we're hoping that we can further the relationship by becoming a friend and a very good friend. But how is it possible that you could take the time to do that and you see your neighbor at large and you will not help it? If that very person you're trying to engage in dialogue wants these attributes about you, you can see she or he know everything you said is a lie. So I implore you to be straightforward, be truth, have honesty and wisdom to know the difference.
So, when we talk about honesty and wisdom, those are things that, when we were a kid, that was one of our main outcrop for us of growing up was honesty. We lived on it. But back then, at that time too, a man could do thousands of dollars of contract on a handshake. And that was all it needed. That was all it needed, because his word was his contract. It was his bonding. Nowadays, the only thing a person's word is good for is mostly the seconds after they done left, as they drop by the wayside, especially if he's a contractor. That's the point, we don't communicate. We always want to do nothing but the last part of communing, and that is take. So we have to get back to being each other's brothers and sisters. We have to get back to talking to each other's about life. We have to get back to enjoying each other's company, because then you can enjoy each other's life. These are things that we are pushed by the wayside in the process of being more modernized, more civilized, more privatized. And we give up everything, including our lives, because we don't live it properly. So we're throwing it away. That's the same way as this gentleman threw away the lives of 20 kids. We do the same thing with the things around us. Wake up, America. Wake up.
Are you awake? Did he get your attention? I shall hope so. Because if he did not, one of these days you might be the recipient of criteria of steel that will melt your hands like hot wax, because you says I was nonchalant. What an epitaph, what an attribute to be associated with an integrity. Because when you look in the mirror, who do you see? It's not a figment of your imagination. You see the real, because it depicts you as you are. can embellish if you like, but it still doesn't change. The image will always be the same. With that being said, I hope and pray that you lift the children up in prayer, and I hope you find it within yourself during this Yuletide season to make a donation to the cause. Because as you know, the economy is in a bad situation, and some of the families might not have had as good as you have, and they was going through the Yuletide season, and maybe they spent all their money buying toys they anticipated, seeing the joy upon the children's face up on Christmas morning. Now they will never do. Only thing they will have tears and remorse. And by making a donation, although money can't buy everything, but it might just if nothing buy comfort. That says I can take these few dollars and I can just get away out of my morbid environment, clear my head. Because when I stay in this house and pass by the building, I mean, it busts me up pretty bad. It does. Because when I first read about it, I saw it on TV. I have children, they're adults now. But I could imagine how they felt because it touched me deeply. And said it wasn't by the grace of God those babies could have been mine. And I hope those who are listening and those who have seen the carnage will have a crude awakening that says, you know something, what contributions I can make to society, my environment, my community, to make sure if something is happening like that, if the parents worried about the stigmatization, remember, your babies also live in their neighborhood. And if that child is not helped, let you be a witness today what has happened this week. It will society's day of infamy. And don't let your day of infamy be a treasure like that happened in your community. And I thank you for being benevolent and kind. If you do make a donation, where I come from is 8 degrees of giving. It's called a tax decade box. You take what you need, but no one never will know who put it there. And this way, you can embellish or say whatever you like, kind word. If not, just say, this is from my storehouse of God to you. No name is required because you are a unique person. Maybe this will help you weather the storm of many tears that you have cried to get away, to maybe see things from a different perspective. And I hope and pray that the environment you're in, that they will have enough psychological counseling so that it would not allow you to become a self-slaughterer. With that being said, once again, here's my esteemed host, guest.
Well, it seems like, when you follow Nemo, you follow some heavy, heavy, heavy words and thoughts. But the words that he put forth, no matter how heavy they are, carry a lot of love, a lot of feeling. And yes, you're the one that can make a difference. You're the one that even if you just stopped and said hi to the person that lived next to you, it makes a difference. You're the one that it's not what you say, it's how you live that makes the difference. Because the kids are looking for something to compare with. Not what you say, but how you put forth what you do. That's what they look at. And in an era of time where there is no Raka Gibraltar like we had, these kids are living in chaos because there is no love as we had. They're living in shaky ground. Most of them don't feel that they're going to make it to 25. So they live like they're not going to make it to 25. And in the interim, a lot of them don't make it to 25. because that's what they foresee, and that's what their mind and body will follow. But you're the one that can help change that. Just one little kind movement, and it will pass itself on to another kind movement. You know, so start enjoying your brothers and sisters. Start enjoying what you have and not what you don't have. Because everybody's after what you don't have, but you don't take the time to enjoy what you do have. And that way, you can appreciate what you don't have. And it don't make no difference because I'm too enthusiastic over what I do have. If that makes sense to you, then you're listening to what I have to say. And I thank you. So, now back to Mr. Emo.
You know, Michael Jackson and a host of others. We are the world. We are love. To me, that means without enigmatic personality traits, insidious inconsistencies predicated upon syllogism, making you the syllogizer. Because you're usurping that you have no right to usurp. You have ordained yourself to be superior and live society at large with a false sense of inferiority in your mind. But when you are made aware of this and you have to face reality, just like the young man did, he's so crushed because nobody took the time to show him love. And he just felt so defeated and he couldn't live with himself. But he didn't want to go out without exacting the pain upon society. And he felt that society is, projected upon him in the community. And you ask yourself, and I said, now, if a person started home by mutilating his mother, something is drastically wrong with that household, that environment that this child come out of. Once again, where I come from, if a child has failed, it is not the one household, it is the whole community's fault because we stood by idly and did nothing when we realized there was some anomalies. We might have said somehow, well, don't let our children play with him, he's kind of off, or he has problems. Well, we never thought of the fact that maybe those problems would come home to roost and we would be the recipient of the carnage that we neglected to do nothing about. Just remember, full manifestation to blossom can come in many forms. It can be a positive, it can be a negative. So with that being said, back to my esteemed guest.
When they came for my neighbors, no one helped. When they came for my friend, no one helped. When they came for me, there was no one left. That's the predicament to be in. When if he had stood up in the beginning, they wouldn't be taking you out in the end. You know? So I guess in the beginning, you should have did some intro. So in the end, you had an escape though. But I guess you didn't take the time to know. So in the interim, there was no one to cry for you. Miss Emma?
You know, sometimes you're on point, and sometimes being human, things can affect you that's so catastrophic that you yourself begin to cry tears of steel, that would melt your hands like contact. And I might cut this short tonight because that is deeply troubling for me. And I don't want you to look your misery, my misery upon you, by to listen to me sorrowfully. So with that being said, this is Epicurian. Next week, it'll be a better time. This week, it's not so good for me. Like the old saying, we all have our days in the sun. This is not mine. So, I'm going to sign off once again. This is River West Radio. The number, if you care to call, make a comment, is area code 414-935-2951. And this I promise you, I will see you next Saturday between 7 and 9. And I won't be so downhearted. With that being said, long life and prosperity. Keep the sunny side up and the breezy side down. Remember, you got to party sometime. It's the Yuletide season. Don't you make someone cry tears of steel that will melt their hands like hot wax. Remember, charity starts at home and spreads abroad. Have compassion. If you find yourself in an environment, call a cab. Or have a designated driver. Being in the military, I don't know if anyone out there would give notification. But the mothers, when they see you coming, they break. Because, my God, she knows she can wait all she wants. But when a child come home, he'll be drinking red, white, and blue. And don't make your mother or your primary caregiver have to suffer like that. So drive careful, be safe. With that being said, good night.